The Call of Duty franchise was once an innovator, setting the standard for FPS games with its groundbreaking campaigns, addictive multiplayer, and a community that defined online gaming culture. It helped launch the careers of countless content creators and even shaped the start of gaming on YouTube. But today, Call of Duty is unrecognizable to many of its loyal fans. For a while, it's felt bloated with cash grabs, and it's no longer about good gameplay, but about squeezing every last cent from its players. And sure, some might say, just don't buy it. But here's the real problem. When Call of Duty makes a change, the gaming industry follows, normalizing gambling mechanics and content locked behind a price tag. And the result? A franchise that feels hollow, a community that feels betrayed, and the player base asking, where did it all go wrong? To understand how we got here, we need to look back at Call of Duty's monetization history, and how it became a symbol of everything wrong with modern gaming. During the early days of console gaming, live services like Xbox Marketplace were just starting to gain traction, so DLC was far and few in the beginning. But that didn't stop Call of Duty from making sure to capitalize on this growing market. Games as early as COD 2 had paid content, but at the very start, many players didn't feel the need to buy DLC, with a lot of the players not even knowing it existed. But with the steady rise in Call of Duty, it would be silly as a franchise not to capitalize on any potential profit. So, the DLC started pouring in, with World at War having 3 DLC and not only offering multiplayer maps, but zombies maps as well, making fans feel like maybe DLC wasn't a bad thing if the content stayed consistent and was quality content, which at the time, it felt like it was. So Call of Duty noticed this, and the prices for this DLC rose, bringing the map packs to the $14.99 price we knew for so many years. This shift didn't just change Call of Duty though. It set a bar for the rest of the gaming industry, where monetization would take a bigger role in a game's lifespan, keeping most players happy and companies thriving. During this time, players were already accustomed to Call of Duty's DLC format, with many players regularly buying DLC and committing time to the games as a whole, giving Call of Duty the foundation for their next plan to get into players' wallets, with the addition of the Season Pass, an all-access ticket of sorts that allowed you to play all the additional content added to the games during their lifespans, saving you money in the long run. Now, MW3 technically didn't have a season pass, but they had COD Elite, a $50 yearly subscription that gave you new maps and small packs over the year, with zero additional cost, which is just a season pass as far as I'm concerned. It's important to note too that in Black Ops 2, Call of Duty started to add cosmetic DLCs for the first time, setting a trend for the foreseeable future. Up until World War II, I don't think many players had any problems with the DLC themselves. For the Infinity Ward Call of Duties, DLC was a nice thing to look forward to, giving us unique settings for our soldiers to fight in, and Treyarch was doing the same, even giving us some of the best zombies maps ever created through the DLCs, still keeping fans of the game satisfied. But that was until Call of Duty soon showed their first signs of true greed. Comes Advanced Warfare, and Call of Duty added supply drops, a loot box of sorts that rewarded the player with 3 random cosmetics or weapon variants. Supply drops were given to players for a multitude of reasons in AW, with the most straightforward method being time played. Advanced supply drops, on the other hand, were harder to come by, with the player only being rewarded them after reaching levels 20, 30, 40, and after prestiging. But don't worry, if that's not enough, you could always purchase them at any time. The response to AW's supply drops was pretty negative, with a lot of the player base agreeing that adding variants of guns with stats better than the original versions was straight up pay to win. So they changed their system over the next couple years. Starting Black Ops 3, they added new weapons to the supply drop pool instead of base weapons with better stats. And later in Infinite Warfare and World War II, they gave Season Pass holders the weapons as they were added, which sounded great until the catch was you could get better variants of the weapons out of supply drops, moving backwards in the progress that Call of Duty made towards this system in the first place. It's worth mentioning that Call of Duty took feedback from Advanced Warfare and added a currency system that built steadily as players played matches, giving them the freedom to use their tokens as they pleased. But all these decisions didn't come without criticism, and the sheer amount of DLC, weapons, and cosmetics felt impossible to chase, with new ones coming out so often. From COD 2 to World War II, we saw 7 season passes, 45 map packs, 140 cosmetic DLCs, and an estimated 9,356 total supply drop items, spanning 14 games and over 12 years of Call of Duty. The sheer volume of DLC was staggering, And what we didn't know as players who had witnessed all of this, that change was coming. This time, the shift wouldn't just be another DLC or map pack. This time, it would redefine the way we experienced the game. The beginning of a new era. Now, of course, players were already critical of Call of Duty and the methods they used to make extra cash. But Black Ops 4 was taking it to another level. Firstly, there were no more separate DLC packs, and in order to play DLC, you had to buy the Black Ops Pass. There were store bundles, supply drops, and eventually, a battle pass. A reward system that refreshes with each season, with items never set to make a return, made to hopefully encourage players to grind the whole season so they don't miss out. The main battle passes were thankfully free, but if you were willing to throw cash at the game, you could buy special orders. A new battle pass track that gave you the contents of a bundle as you progress through the tiers, making players work towards paid cosmetics. The free supply drops, or reserve cases, only granted one item at a time, with the crates that grant 3 items being locked behind a paywall. Much later in the game's life cycle, they finally added crates purchasable with 6 reserve cases, which in the only defense of Black Ops 4 store system, you could purchase many things with reserve cases, but the amount of grinding required to do that is of course way more than any player is looking to put in, hoping the players would cave and empty their wallets. As you can imagine, Call of Duty got bashed once again for these scummy tactics, with some players' view of the franchise permanently tainted since. And before we know it, Call of Duty had one more trick up its sleeve. In 2019, Infinity Ward and Activision took a major step back from the traditional DLC model that they have used for many years. People were now given maps and weapons for free through seasonal content. Each season had a battle pass that players could earn free or paid cosmetics from. There was also the addition of operator bundles, purely cosmetic packs that usually had a character skin and a couple of weapon skins. Then months after MW 2019's release, Infinity Ward dropped probably the most successful Call of Duty mode of all time with Warzone. Warzone was a free-to-play battle royale set in the Call of Duty universe that gave Call of Duty that push players felt it needed for so long. But as time went on, things were starting to look worse and worse for the main games. The next few Call of Duty titles followed Modern Warfare 19's content approach, and things were looking pretty consistent for Call of Duty when it came to additional content. The mainline games were still getting maps consistently, although they were starting to feel a bit lackluster, usually banking off old maps to draw on hype. Warzone was getting its own content as well. But what came midway through MW2's life cycle was just the thing Call of Duty players didn't want to see. Another paywall created that once again divided the community, the Black Cell Pass. Another tier to the Battle Pass that granted even more rewards with a steeper price point. $30 to be exact. More players felt that Call of Duty was starting to value monetization rather than gameplay, and once again making players feel like if they didn't pay premiums, they couldn't experience the whole game. And for Warzone players, the Black Cell Pass felt like an expensive cosmetic. But for people now paying $70 for a Call of Duty game, it really puts a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. All of these systems, the loot boxes, battle passes, season passes, and now the Black Cell Pass tell the same story. A franchise that continuously changes ways to monetize its audience, often at the expense of the core gameplay experience that made it legendary. But beyond just Call of Duty, these strategies highlight a troubling trend in the gaming industry as a whole. So where does that leave us today? Well, the state of Black Ops 6 is truly heartbreaking. For a brief moment, it felt like Call of Duty was finally returning to its roots, offering a game that felt unique and alive. The movement was smooth, and for the first time in a while, the community seemed to be coming back together, especially with the game being available on Game Pass. It gave players hope that the franchise was on the verge of something great again. But as the months go by, it's hard to ignore how quickly things have unraveled. Treyarch's over-reliance on AI-generated art, the complete lack of meaningful progress on anti-cheat systems, which makes competitive play at higher ranks nearly impossible, and the unfortunate prioritization of corporate partnerships like Netflix events have left players feeling unheard. Now, this isn't a video where I tell you to go on strike or stop buying things on Call of Duty. By all means, if it makes you happy, go for it. I've definitely spent more than I'd like to admit on this franchise, and I continue to do so at sometimes. Once again, the problem at its core isn't the DLC, it's the issues along with the push for DLC that aggravates the player base, and with so many other quality games flooding the market, It's increasingly difficult for people to justify sticking around. Why continue to invest time in a game that's more focused on extracting money from its players than improving the core experience? It's hard not to feel like the franchise has lost its way, and sadly, the passion that once drove the community feels like a distant memory. If you guys enjoyed the video, please drop a like and subscribe for more videos every single Monday at 3 p.m. EST. I put a lot of work into this video and I hope it shows. Combined time today I've spent making this video is about 12 hours, and that doesn't even count the week of planning. Between getting the background gameplay, all of the visuals, finding sources, which I am going to leave in the description below, it took a long time and I hope it showed. I love you guys. Thank you so much for the recent support on all the videos. I do see it and I'm reading every single comment. I'm trying to collect as much feedback as possible and try to improve with every single one of these videos that I put out. So please keep the feedback coming. But that's all for me today, guys. I'm gonna get to sleep. It has been your boy Katana, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.